Shannon, the McCabe's thought they were starting a family when they adopted two young boys from foster care. Instead, they say theirs was torn apart. The boys' faces in this piece are blurred because of their ages and the nature of the alleged crime. Their mother says one of her adopted sons was sexually abusing the other for a year. And she says it could have been prevented.
That's him. And I mean, he doesn't look like a predator.
Kelly McCabe never expected her family to be perfect. She just wanted it to be forever.
It's scary.
Unable to have biological children, she and her husband decided to adopt from the foster care system. Sure, it was different, but she thought it would work for them. But just months after adopting her two boys in Tampa, that picture-perfect image
it was just
was shattered.
shocking. And I just felt very, very let down.
Just 4 and 11 when she adopted them, her sons lived together in foster care before they came into her forever family. She calls them B-Man and J-Man for short. The two seemed to be close until one day in the bath when her 4-year-old wouldn't stop crying. He finally confided in her that J-Man, his 11-year-old adopted brother, had been sexually assaulting him since the day they moved in.
I mean, in the beginning, it was honestly, it was hard to even get out of bed some days. But you just have to. You have two kids who are depending on you, and their entire lives have been chaos. The sports we like to play.
She and her husband wanted to lift them out of that chaos. But as a victim of sexual assault in college, she made it clear to the adoption agency she could not adopt any kids with deviant sexual behaviors. She was repeatedly assured that J-Man had no problems, had never been in trouble, and would be a perfect sibling for her 4-year-old. Turns out, that couldn't have been further from the truth.
You know, so as far as they knew, they're putting B-Man, who's never been victimized in that way, in a room alone with a sex offender, who's my other son.
I think I'm right on this issue. There's a statute, 63.212, which provides that if you knowingly...
Kelly's lawyer, Richard Filson, started petitioning the adoption agency for records as J-Man continued to act out. In Florida, foster care adoptions are handled through community-based partners that contract with the Department of Children and Families. There's a different agency for each county. In Jacksonville, it's Family Support Services. In Tampa, where Kelly filed her lawsuit, it's Camelot Community Care. He says what he found in those records was shocking.
Record after record after record recount one act after another by J-Man acting sexually inappropriately with other kids, including sexual acts. And it goes on from 05 to month after month in 06.
Okay. Kelly and her lawyers say they never once saw one piece of paper that detailed the sexually explicit behavior J-Man acted out on other kids at school and in his foster home until they threatened a lawsuit.
They didn't give in our disclosure packet the safety plan that was put in place by the sheriff's office, saying he could never ever be allowed left alone with a younger child in a bedroom or in any room. I mean, it was just completely removed from our records. And had that, I mean, he should have never been able to be adopted by us. We had one bedroom for the boys.
J-Man. He was a Hart Gallery kid?
Mm-hmm.
Since they're not safe together, Kelly and her husband now live apart. She lives with B-Man almost an hour away, while her husband lives with J-Man and has him under constant supervision. She understands that most people can't imagine their decision to keep both of their sons.
What are we supposed to do? Just cut him out of it? You know, am I supposed to just not love him anymore?
Not everyone makes Kelly's decision. Over the past 5 years, 268 children have been returned to foster care after permanent adoptions in Florida. Well, it's a very small percentage of the total number of adoptions that stick each year in the state. For the kids and the parents, that number is everything.
It broke my heart. It ruined my life and it broke my heart.
Vicki Petty adopted a little girl from foster care in 1985 after she found out she couldn't have any more children. She says almost immediately her adopted daughter was abusing her young son.
And then at night, things would happen. She would sneak into his room, hide shards of glass in his drawers.
A few years later, she was sexually abusing him as well.
She was holding a knife to his throat when my mother caught them. He was 8 years old at that point. She had a knife to his throat, forcing him to have sex.
That day, Petty petitioned to dissolve her adoption. Both she and her estranged husband were charged with neglect and abandonment for giving up.
We set up
But she says keeping her little girl would have destroyed her.
There's people out there, families that are being devastated as we speak. Absolutely devastated.
They made.
Kelly McCabe's is one of them.
It's torn our marriage apart.
No matter the consequence, Kelly says she's committed to keeping both of her boys, to always being their mother.
If they were my biological children, well, I couldn't send them anywhere. They're my kids, and that's the promise I made when I adopted them. For better or worse, whatever happens, that's the promise I made.
The McCabe's now have their older son in intensive therapy and say they're making small strides, but their entire definition of what it is to be a family has changed.
Oh, boy.
Shannon?
It's powerful stuff. So there are laws in the books requiring such disclosure.
Absolutely. There's both local laws, state laws, and the agencies have laws. The Department of Children and Families says it's absolutely their policy that everything you know about a child, every evaluation, home study, even criminal activity, all of that should be disclosed before these kids are adopted out. But obviously, in some cases, that's just not happening. And they are suing for monetary damages because they say they're going to need that money now to pay for the care they need.
And part 2 tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Part 2 tomorrow night about the legal ramifications and what they can do to fix this situation.
Caitlin, thank you very much.